Hello and welcome back to the Last Word on Spurs for this opposition preview. Yes, there's been no football over the weekend, so we are fresh, we're vibrant, we're ready to go. We are joined by Sam Fonseca from the Sporting 160N podcast, who gives us his thoughts ahead of Tottenham Hotspur's next Champions League game to come, of course, Sporting Lisbon away. Sam, firstly, lovely to have you on the channel. How are you?
I'm great, mate. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It was great to hear from you. And I've been in England from Stephen, who spoke about earlier. I've had lots of times to watch Tottenham and the Premier League in general. So yeah, it's good. I would like to say I know a little bit about the Premier League as well, but obviously sporting being my main forte. So hopefully I can educate, or if some of you already know, sort of agree with your fan base on what sporting is and how we could line up and the results and things like that. Yeah, thank you again for having me on.
Pleasure. As I said to Sam in the green room, no one's going to hold it against you that you're living in Stevenage, but you've decided to opt for Sporting Lisbon. Of course, from a heritage perspective, absolutely no pressure on that at all. Sam, it's interesting, obviously, Spurs' next Champions League game against Sporting to come. I think it's fair to say Spurs, to some degree, against Marseille, struggled their way through the game. They won the game by 2-0. Richarlison brace, which I think we're all delighted to see him finally get off the mark in a Spurs shirt. Tell us, firstly, what you make of the upcoming tie for you from a sporting perspective. What do you make of Spurs overall as a club at the moment?
Yeah, so from a sporting perspective, if we were playing this game, if the Frankfurt and this fixture was reversed, I would not be confident at all. We had a really poor start to the season. We lost 3-0 to Porto, and we lost 2-0 to a newly promoted side at home as well. So it was a really shaky start for us. But that Frankfurt game seems to have turned all our fortunes around. I believe we're on a 4-game win streak now. Last game, we won 4-0 and obviously the 3-0 at Frankfurt. I think at the moment, obviously, no doubt about it, Spurs are the favourites in this game. But the way we played against Frankfurt, if we keep that same sort of philosophy and the same style of play, I don't see why we couldn't, get a victory or even a draw. I think most sporting fans would take a point against Spurs. But I think the thing we have going for us is obviously a home leg. Champions League atmosphere for Sporting is always incredible. And I think just looking at it from an outsider perspective, when you look at Spurs, I don't know if you guys feel the same. It's all been a culture shift since Conte came in. Definitely looks like more promising. It wasn't that long ago that he made that Champions League final as well. But looking at your team now, like I said, whole culture change. You've got some great players in there. Your front four, Kulusevski, Richarlison, Son, Kane, arguably four of the best attackers in football. So that's going to be a scary thought coming up against, especially for someone like Sebastian Coates. I'm not sure if he ever came up against Kane. I'm not sure if he was gone from England at that point. But, there's definitely a few good attackers. And the thing for us as well, we've had quite a few injuries. Our main centre-back, St. Just, who we bought from Mainz in the summer for 10 million, he's out with an injury, so he won't be playing. Our most experienced centre-back, Luis Neto, suffered a knee sprain on Saturday. He's not going to be playing either. So it looks like we'll be short of the centre-backs. Maybe the only three centre-backs we have fit are the ones starting. So definitely want to look out for in terms of like yellow cards, injuries. Obviously, anything can happen. But yeah, Spurs are obviously the clear favourites from this. And in my humble opinion, if we escape with the draw, I'll be happy with that. You've got a very good team. And going by player, I think Spurs by far are the favourites in this game.
Yeah, it's interesting, Sam. You look at Sporting from the outside looking in. I mean, they're always a team that always seem to be in and around the Champions League season after season. They're a seasoned, you'd say, side that are used to that competition, playing in that competition. Just give us an idea of how their season has gone so far domestically and what kind of side Spurs are coming up against on, well, it's now, like I say, tomorrow evening.
Yeah, so we had a really bad start to the season. The 3-0 against Porto was really embarrassing. We actually got a man sent off, Pedro Porro, handballed it off the line. It's sort of Luis Suarez-esque at the World Cup. But they won 3-0 with a man down. And then the game after was against the newly promoted team. Everyone thought, we're going to get back into the swing of things, newly promoted team, easy to beat. And then we just underestimated them. And we lost 2-0. And that was at home as well. And that was a really embarrassing result. But I think the good thing for us is that we've got a point to prove now. So we haven't done that well domestically. But like I said, we turned it around on a 4-3-game win streak. And that game against Frankfurt, I don't think anyone in the group, if you said, Sporting, we're going to win that 3-0, I don't think anyone would have said, yeah, like that's definitely going to happen. It was definitely a shock result, even for a Sporting fan. And even like if you look at the game, the first half from us was pretty awful. We gave the ball away so many times, and luckily Frankfurt weren't clinical enough to score. But I think what Sporting need to look out for, most of the goals we concede are from own mistakes, if that makes sense, which might be like a an obvious thing to say, but like we like to play around the back and shift out to our wing backs, move out of the field. Sometimes they try and pass back and they put it through to the opposition. Just stuff like that. Really simple mistakes that I think our centre backs need to deal with. The thing I'm worried about is that for big clubs, like we played against Man City last year and we got smacked 5-0 at home. So it can happen. Even Ajax, we lost 5-1 at home, and that was both in the Champions League, of course. So we're not. If that happens again, I'll be very upset. Obviously, hope knock on wood that doesn't happen. But it shows it can happen. All we need to do is stay confident, believe in our game plan, which I don't think we've done in other games such as Man City and Ajax. And like I said, as long as we stick to the game plan, same way we came out against Frankfurt, Spurs could be in for a difficult game. But I do think if you look at how Spurs have been playing, I know you said you weren't playing the best against Marseille, but at the end of the day, 3 points is 3 points, and that's what the history will reflect on. And I think looking at it, Marseille even a better set-up team than Sporting at the moment. You look at the defence; they've got Chancellor Mbemba, who used to play for Porto last year. Sporting fans will be very familiar with him. He's a great centre-back. And I think Marseille is going to be a tough game for us also. But I think, like I said, if we get away with a point, I'll be happy. But at the moment, I see, especially with all the injuries we have as well, like I said, our two main centre-backs are out. And even before that, our backup midfielder, Torres ACL, is probably out for the season. And one of our strikers also injured. No, it's not been released what that injury is yet, but he's been out for quite a while and won't be back, I think, until after January as well. So we've got a lot of injuries, but hopefully, I can see us getting a draw, but I think it's going to be a very difficult game the way Spurs have been playing recently.
Sam, you touched on a few players there. Give us an idea from a Spurs perspective of the players to watch out for. Who are the danger men that are going to really cause Spurs potentially some issues on Tuesday evening?
I'll start with an obvious one, which is Marcus Edwards. I think definitely a point to prove against Spurs. The way he was sort of let go, I think it's always been a chip on his shoulder, and definitely someone who you can see it when he plays. He plays with he's an elegant footballer. The way he has the ball at his feet, the way he scores against Frankfurt, he was the best player on the pitch and got a well-deserved man of the match. He didn't play a lot last year from January because we had Pablo Sarabia on loan from PSG, and he was our star man, and he was very hard to drop. So he sort of came off the bench in some cameo appearances. But now we're sort of playing him at a striker role where he's sort of getting into his own. He's obviously not the perfect striker. He's not the right build for a striker, especially in Amorim's system. But the way he's been going on, I think, if he's definitely going to look out for a goal. And for some reason on these Champions League nights, he sort of likes to introduce himself. Like I said, in the Man City game, we lost 5-0 in the away leg, which I was lucky enough to watch at the Etihad. He came on off the bench and he pretty much just tried to score 5 on his own. He's just a phenomenal player. So I'd say him definitely number one to watch out for. 2 is Francisco Trincao, who was at Wolves last season. He had a pretty shaky time at Wolves, but in the last 3 games, he's scored 3 goals and he's been looking absolutely incredible, sort of getting that confidence back. And he actually worked with Ruben Amorim at SC Braga. So there's a link between them two, and he seems to be coming into his own. And obviously, he's used to the Tottenham defence. Obviously, I know it's improved since last year, but he's used to the Premier League and the physicality. So I think he should be working towards it. And I'll give one more player to watch out for. I would say we've got a bit left field here with Sebastian Coates, who is our captain and our main centre back. He's nicknamed the Patron because he's the boss of the midfield. The defence even. But the way he commands the whole team, he's just a great defender. He knows when to make those pitch perfect tackles. He's good on the ball. He's confident. And if he gets a corner, if he gets his head on that, it's almost a guaranteed goal, if not a shot on target. So I'd say those 3. There's obviously some more like Manuel Ugarte, who's our centre mid, who's a great player. Pedro Porro, right back. Pedro Gonçalves. But I think if you look at this game, I think those are the 3 you're going to have to watch out for.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Sam. A real insight there into those players ahead of Tuesday night. Just intrigued to know from your perspective, when you look at that group, how confident are you that Sporting will make it out of that group into the group stage, into the knockout stages, in your opinion?
I think we spoke about before we came on. If you look at this group, you can say anyone can qualify. Even now, I know Frankfurt didn't have the best performance against us, but they won the Europa League last year. They're still a good team. I think anyone can qualify. The way I look at it now, we've got those 3 points from Frankfurt, which is good. If we can get a point from Spurs, like I said, then, or even let's say 3 points if we're being super optimistic, then it's ours to lose pretty much.
Yeah.
But I think I am confident just because last year as well, like I said, we started off the group last year. We had Ajax, Besiktas and Dortmund. No one thought we were going to make it out. We lost 5-1 on the opening day, and we managed to qualify over Dortmund and Besiktas. So I think we've definitely got that pedigree, and it's something that the players are looking to prove. I think our goal is to qualify second. I think Spurs definitely are the favourites to get that top spot. Like I said, it's very dangerous to underestimate any of the teams in this group because given their day, they can take 3 points home and away, I reckon.
No, I agree. I mean, I said it to you before. I think this group is very similar to the group that Spurs had. I think, well, back in 4 or 5 years ago, where they had lots of AS Monaco in there, PSV. It's a group that, on paper, it looked one that would be quite easy to progress, but you're playing against teams that have all got a self-determination and belief that they can find their way through the group. And I think the minute you take your eye off the ball or you underestimate teams, you're going to be in for trouble. So I think it's, again, a very similar group. You've got a lot of workman-like teams in there, lots of Sporting that have been around the Champions League for God knows how many years. Similar, again, when you look at now Frankfurt, of course, winning the Europa League, a side that I know what it's like to win a trophy. As Spurs fans, I don't need to obviously go on that subject that it's been so long for us. So I think generally, I think it's massively important, for clubs in the early stages to get those 3 points. For Spurs against Marseille, where they arguably weren't at their best, you still feel with Tottenham there's another couple of gears to go up in. So I'll be really intrigued how they handle the atmosphere for Sporting. I'll be really intrigued to see how they can cope with, as I've said, missing out on a Premier League game this weekend against Man City in that maybe extra recovery time they've now got for this game. So finally, Sam, before we let you go, we have to ask you for a prediction. I think you mentioned it a little bit. You're going to go and hint to it earlier. What are you going to go for, Sam?
You know what? I'll give one head and one heart. I think my head says a 1-1. Okay. That's still like a hopeful prediction as well. I think if we play the way we did, we should be fine. But my heart, I'm going to say 2-1 to Sporting, I think. And okay. I'll say Marcus Edwards to get one, Kane score for you, and then Sebastian Courtois off a corner, just so I look like a wizard with my predictions.
We can't blame you, Sam, for coming on here and giving us a chance to have a prediction win. So, Sam, thank you so much. We wish you all the best of luck for the rest of the season, bar these fixtures, and we look forward to welcoming you back on Last Word on Spurs for the return, of course, fixture this game.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I really do appreciate it, mate.
Pleasure, Sam. And like I say, just where everyone can find you, where can they find the latest? They want to hear about Sporting's progress throughout Europe and the competition itself. Where can people check out the podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast is on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. That is Sporting 160 EN. I would say the Twitter page is probably the best to keep up to date, just because we tweet every day, every morning at like 9 a.m. We do the news, the Portuguese news. So if you're interested in that, Sporting 160_EN. And finally, I'll just say we have a TikTok, which is just a couple of clips from our podcast. If you don't have time to watch the whole sort of hour and a half, we do the best bits on there, which is also Sporting 160 EN.
Amazing. Sam, we'll update that in our description for everybody in YouTube. But as always, thanks for coming on, and we look forward to having you back on for the reverse fixture.
Cheers, mate. Good luck for the rest of the season as well. Just not for Tuesday.
Nice one. Thank you so much.
It's all right.